Operation Second Rainfall has been a complete and utter disaster because it seems like there's only one guy on Twitter posting about it. It seems like the entire narrative has just collapsed over the past month. And like nobody who tried initially covering the story, like not Vera Dark, not Niche Gamer, not any of these nobodies on YouTube, not a single person really wants to address what happened. The fact is, it was a complete and utter hoax. Nintendo is not censoring games. They are not preventing Neptunia games from coming out in the West. There is no like conspiracy to fuck over like, niche Japanese developers, right? It was a complete and total farce. And this was easily observably true by looking at the eShop, seeing all like the number of games on there that kind of debunked the narrative. This idea that Nintendo was going after games with sexual content, right? You had like, hentai games on like the front page, right? You had like we've been having that stuff for a long time, right? We got like Yeast 10 in October, which had like the bikini DLC set. Like we've had all of this stuff over the years that demonstrates that Nintendo is not actively censoring Japanese games right now. And if they did, I wouldn't care about it, right? There is no evidence at all that Nintendo is going after like Neptunia specifically. Like I think they even had one come out this month. Not that I would ever play it because it looks like shit, but like the entire narrative, right, that was running all throughout December was that Nintendo of America was going crazy, that they were blocking games left and right, that there were a number of games that were going to come out that were canceled, and that Nintendo is doing this. And it became apparent very quickly that the other theory was true, that the ESRB is cracking down harder on sexualizing underage girls in Western releases, right? So Nintendo was not publishing these because of the ESRB. It was not an internal decision. Okay. So like this was always like the other theory. It was the one that didn't get any momentum. It was the one no one talked about. It was the one people like to say was a cope or a seethe or something like that. But like, yeah, like it's very evident at this point that it was ESRB related. It was ratings board related, right? This kind of stuff can't be sold in the West legally, and that's becoming more and more apparent over time. As the industry grows and evolves, and as people learn to like hate this kind of thing and stuff like that. Like, yeah, like this should be regulated. This should be rated accordingly, and yes, in certain cases, they should not see a Western release, right? Obviously, but in now that we know that it's the ESRB, now that we know the reality of the situation, now that we know like what's actually happening, support for these games has completely evaporated overnight, right? Nobody cares about them. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's bringing this up because this was never about Neptunia. This was never about censored titties in Japanese games. This was about trying to pretend as if Nintendo was going to start removing content from Japanese games. Like the idea was that they were going to start becoming more and more aggressive with what they would allow on their eShop and how this would affect games like Xenoblade and Fire Emblem. Right now, you're seeing like the same kind of people have moved on to Xenoblade Chronicles X, trying to concern troll about that being censored, even though we already know that the original version was censored to begin with and nobody cared, right? Because it didn't really affect anything at all. But like the narrative has always been that like, no, this is a big deal. You're just a cocksucker. No, I bought Xenoblade Chronicles X when it came out, and I'm gonna buy it again on the Switch. Regardless of what they changed or what they did to it, because I fundamentally like the game as a whole. To me, I detest censor shitters. I always have. I detest how much they worship underage anime titties. I hate how much they fixate on Nintendo games. I hate how they like start talking about how games have been censored even if they're the exact same in the Japanese version. It's like it's just a massive conspiracy that just has no basis and just completely ruins the discussion of the game online for people who are genuine fans. As a Tokyo Mirage Sessions fan, I had to deal with people crying about that game being censored throughout its entire existence, right? Like it's been weird over the past like year or so, like seeing people like slowly discover the game and realize how good it actually is. But like for a long time, you couldn't do that because of these people. And that is my mindset going into this is that like these people crying about censorship are actively ruining discussion of Nintendo games. I don't care that you can't put Potato Girl in like a bikini, okay? Like I don't care. I don't care about the boob slider. I don't care about like anything Nintendo is doing, right? None of that seems off base to me. Like, why should I care about underage anime titties? Like, why? And to me, it's getting really tiresome. Like hearing people bring up the same games and the same cases over and over and over again. You still see people complain about Tokyo Mirage Sessions, in 2025, right? I just saw like Censored Gaming put like an anniversary post about it because that was the last time his channel was ever relevant. When you look at like what actually happens with these games, you realize that like these kind of controversies, these kind of individuals, they don't really leave much of an impact on the game's legacy or its long-standing appeal at all. So like with that being said, like why exactly are we tolerating these people just going around just making all these ludicrous statements about Nintendo and their censorship policies, their localization policies, right? Like why exactly are we letting these people like pretend as if we're missing out on a ton of high quality content when in reality like it's just minor dialogue changes and costume adjustments, right? Like what how exactly does any of that ruin playing Nintendo games in English? Like what exactly am I missing out on by not having literal translations, right? Like, why should I care? Like, over the years, I have been thoroughly disgusted with the behavior of the censorship community and have always been a staunch detractor of it. And this is just one example why.